So I just flew back from Italy yesterday, and it was probably the best trip I have ever been on in my entire life. And before going to Italy, I had this idea in my head that Europe was going to feel way better than America in like every single way. Because as a lot of us know, America is constantly getting trashed on. Even like as Americans, we see it getting trashed on all the time. And when it came to this Italy trip, I mean, the views were just incredible. The architecture is insane there. Like the average building there looks so nice, and the people were really nice too, which was great. But now that I am back in the US, I have to admit that I miss this place a lot. There were certain things that we take for granted in the United States big time that you do not realize until you travel out of the United States. And this may sound kind of weird, but I honestly feel way more patriotic than I ever have in my entire life after this trip. Like, I am so grateful to be an American, and going on this trip helped me learn that in a lot of different ways. And by no means am I saying America is a perfect place. We have a lot of problems, as all of us know, but, compared to certain things that I saw in Italy, I was like, wow, I did not even think that I would miss that. And here I am missing it. So in this video, I will be explaining to you guys my trip, like where I went, the things I really liked about Italy, as well as the things I did not like, and then some things that I missed the most about America. So before we jump into the video, drop a comment down below if you have ever traveled somewhere and it has changed your perspective about where you lived and what was that place, or what was the perspective that changed. And I also need to make this clear at the beginning of the video that everything I am saying here is just my opinion. So if you do not agree with it, that is totally fine. I do not really care, because we can have different opinions. So do not really be offended by my experience, and I might even give some hot takes that people really do not agree with. But hey, like I said, it is my experience, this is my take, and that is okay. And I'm also going to put some screenshots and videos in like the bottom left corner over the gameplay here. So some of the editing in this video might seem a little brainy with like footage on top of footage, but just a heads up there. So before I talk about what I really liked about Italy, I do want to briefly explain my trip and like what it looked like. So my girlfriend and I flew into Milan, and we spent one night there, which was pretty cool. We were kind of jet lagged that first day. So, the only thing we basically did was go out to dinner and then see like some of the architecture and some of the pretty cool buildings there, which was really awesome. But most of our trip was spent in two main places. So after Milan, we took the trains down to an area called Umbria. This is slightly south of Tuscany. Imagine an area kind of like Napa Valley, where it is like rolling hills, a lot of vineyards, things like that. And we rented an Airbnb there, and we stayed there for a couple of days, which was great. And actually, girlfriend is now fiance, because I got engaged there. I proposed, she said yes, so that was awesome. Really nice to get that part, done earlier on in the trip. That way I am not stressing about it the entire trip. So we spent a few days there. We went wine tasting, we went horseback riding. It was pretty cool. And then after a couple of days there, we ended up going to a beach town. We basically traveled most of the day and went to this beach town called Rapallo, and we stayed in Rapallo for the last couple of days of the trip. So basically we were taking the trains from Milan down to like, countryside, and then countryside over to the beach town. And then at the very end of the trip, we went back to Milan and then flew out of Milan. But all these areas were beautiful, but most of the trip was basically in the Italian countryside as well as a beach town. So that was really cool, and those are the areas that we went to during our time there. So those are the areas we went to. Now let us talk about the things that I liked. One of the main things I really liked about Italy is that you can use the trains there to travel like across the country very easily. Like, you can pull up an app, buy 2 tickets for, you and your friends, or, whoever you are with, and then you can just hop on the train for a few hours, and before you know it, you are in a new place, which I think is really cool. And I know in the US, we do not have like a high-speed rail system, at least not across the country. I know, yes, obviously you can take trains across the US, but it takes a while. But I also realized that Italy is a lot smaller than the US, so that is another variable there. But I did think that was really cool. The train system there is very cool, and it is nice that you can just travel from one place to another very easily through this train system. The next thing that I liked, or at least that made things easy, was that most people spoke English. So I would basically say something in Italian, like, "Do you speak English?" And they would say yes, and then I could talk to them normally, which just made it a lot easier. Obviously, this is not unique to Italy. It just depends on what country you go to, but still, that was very nice. It made things a lot easier when communicating with other people. So that is the next thing. And even if I did struggle to communicate with people, if they did not speak English, you can actually just download the language on Google Translate. So I could type something in English, it will pop up in Italian, I just show them my phone, and then they know what I am saying. So do that if you are traveling somewhere and they do not speak English. You can download it. That way, if you have bad connection, you can still communicate with people. So that is another thing. Now, the next thing that I loved about Italy is it is a beautiful country. I mean, I love Tuscany. I love Rapallo. There was a couple of like small towns that my fiance and I went to that were, in this Umbria area, or at least around it. One of the towns was kind of this old historic town called Montepulciano, and it was beautiful. We got some fire ass sandwiches there, got incredible views. I mean, just unbeatable. I love that town a lot. There's another town we went to called Castiglione del Lago. I am probably mispronouncing these things, but you can just Google it pretty easily. And that town was great. There honestly were not that many tourists Paris in the area we were at, which I thought was really cool. That way we could kind of have a unique experience, but the Italian countryside is just beautiful. And then same thing with, Rapallo, Santa Margherita, Portofino, all just beautiful beach towns. I mean, the buildings there, it literally looks unreal. Like you see pictures of it online and you are like, is it going to look like that? Yes, it 100% does. Love these places. Like, I thought it was a really cool experience that I had there. The next thing I really liked was the architecture. Like, so for example, like in Italy, even if you are in an area that might be a little more rundown, the average architecture there is super beautiful. Now, I am not talking about the quality of the building, not talking about the interior. I am just saying the outside of the buildings. Like when you are walking past them, they honestly just look so cool. Like the average house in Italy is so nice, at least the areas I went to. But obviously there is probably certain parts that have really ugly architecture. They are pretty beat up. But even when we were on the train rides and we were going through all these small towns, you see these red roofs, you see these really cool Italian buildings. I just thought it was really nice. Like the average architecture there just goes crazy. So that was pretty cool. Another thing I really liked is a lot of the people there were very friendly and very helpful. Like you could walk up to somebody and ask them something and they would tell you exactly what you need to do. People were very open to helping you, which I thought was great. Another thing that was really cool is we got to meet a lot of people from all different types of places. Like, once we both realized that we spoke English, a lot of times people are pretty open to interacting with you, which was cool. And also just speaking with Italians too and getting to talk to them a little bit, which just was really, it was cool to meet people from different places and kind of hear what their life is like compared to ours. And then another thing that is really awesome about Italy is when you go to dinner, before dinner, there is this phase that is basically called aperitivo, where people just have drinks and like a couple of snacks. They will literally, like, you could order a drink for you and whoever you are with, the drinks come out, and then they will bring you out free food, like not huge meals, but they will bring you out like almost like a little charcuterie board. They will bring you Italian meats, cheeses, bread, honey, just little snacks and stuff, but it is completely free. Like you are not paying for that, which was pretty cool. I like that a lot because in the US, you definitely would be spending 10, 15, maybe even $20 for like a bunch of meats and cheeses, you know what I mean? So I thought it was really cool that they did that complimentary. I really liked that. Another thing that was very interesting about Italy is that they use a taxi system. So I was using this app called It Taxi, or you see a lot of taxis when you get out of the airport or the train stations. And for the most part, the taxis were pretty cheap. I did not find them to be that expensive, which was cool. And I thought it was pretty easy that you could just walk up to somebody, basically ask them if they take card. You show them the address you are going to, and then you just hop in and you are good. It was nice to have that available when you needed it. So that was pretty fire. As well as another thing that I did notice is when we went to Hull, in the wall restaurants, places that a lot of the locals were going to, there's really no Americans in there. The prices were way cheaper. Like it literally felt like 2016 or like 2018 prices, which was awesome. Like for example, when my fiance and I got dropped off after this boat ride, we got dropped off back in Rapallo, and we basically were just trying to find a restaurant pretty quickly that was nearby. So we found this like hole in the wall restaurant, and we literally split a pizza. I got a beer. She got a huge thing of wine. Like I thought it would be a tiny thing. No. This thing was like probably half a bottle, and then we both had dessert, and it cost $35. And yes, I am converting the euros to dollars here. Even when I say that, I think it was like 30 or 31 for all of that. It was so cheap, like in the US, that would have cost easily $50 to $60. I mean, imagine getting a bottle of wine, a huge serving of beer, you splitting a pizza, and you both get your own dessert. I mean, that would definitely cost at least $50 to $60 at most places you go to, unless if you are in like a really small town in the US. So that is one thing that stood out. Now, not all the restaurants were cheap. There were definitely meals where we were paying 80, 90 euro, which converts to like $100+ for a meal. But, there were some hole in the walls that were pretty cheap, and it kind of depends on where you are, of course. But I did like that, the hole in the wall, you could get a lot of food for pretty damn cheap, which was cool. Another thing that was really interesting that my fiance and I were talking about afterwards is that we did not feel bloated one time. Like even when we were eating a lot of food, like even that meal I just described to you where we split a pizza, we are drinking, we are splitting pizza, we are eating our own desserts. We did not even feel bloated after that. And the reason for that is because they use very high quality ingredients in Italy. There is not a lot of processed stuff. They are a lot stricter over there about the chemicals and the things that get put in their food, which honestly, like we noticed that like if you were to go to like even a very casual restaurant today and you got an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert, you would probably feel pretty stuffed afterwards, maybe just like uncomfortably full. But in Italy, even when we ate a ton of food and we were like, okay, I cannot take another bite, I am going to get sick. Like I am completely stuffed. Even then, I still did not feel bloated. It just felt like what you were eating was really clean, which was nice. Like even if you were eating stuff that like a pizza, for example, that is not necessarily healthy, but because all the ingredients are so clean there, it does not make you feel bloated. Like you feel good when you are eating a lot of this food, which is pretty cool. And then one of the last things that I really liked is the gelato there, which is just very similar to ice cream. was gas as expletive. The gelato absolutely slapped. It definitely tastes better than American ice cream, no debate there in my opinion. And then one other thing I actually really liked was that you did not have to tip, which was kind of nice, like not having to sit there and go, okay, what is 20% of this total? Not having to tip was pretty nice. They just charge you like per person for the table usually. So I cannot remember what it is called. It starts with a C, but basically they charge you like $3 for you and $3 for the other person. So it is almost like the tip is already priced in. But if you are getting like, let us say a $100 meal and you are only paying $6 just to sit down, that is a lot cheaper than dropping a 20% tip, which would be $20. You know what I mean? So that part was pretty nice. So I know I just listed a lot of stuff off there, but those are the main things I liked about Italy. Now, I do want to at least talk about the things that I did not like. One of the first things that I did not like in Italy is I felt extremely dehydrated the whole time. Like, getting water there is such a pain in the ass, and getting ice in your water is an even bigger pain in the ass. Like, for example, in the US, when you sit down for dinner, they will immediately bring you water 90% of the time, unless if you say you do not want water, but most of the time that is the starting thing. Like, hey, let me bring you some ice water. In Italy, they charge you for the water, which was kind of annoying. But yeah, feeling like I was extremely dehydrated the whole time was just kind of annoying, and you can definitely go get waters at the store. But even then, like, they do not keep them in the fridge. Like, they are not cold water. They do not do cold stuff over there, just in general. So that is one of the first things I absolutely just did not like. Because I am a big water drinker, I am slamming water all the time, whether it is 9 o'clock in the morning or whether I wake up in the middle of the night. And I feel like a dried up version of SpongeBob. Like, I am always slamming water. So not being able to do that, I was not big on. The next thing I did not like, and this is probably going to offend some people, is I did feel like there was kind of a lack of hygiene there. So what I mean by this is a lot of the bathrooms that you go into, like even at restaurants, they do not have toilet paper, which to me is just insane, because it is like, well, what happens if somebody has to take a expletive, like they just poop and then just have, just a shitty ass, like they just walk around, like what are Y all doing over there? And do not get me wrong, I understand there are bidets, but I am talking about specifically bathrooms that do not have bidets in them, which I was not using anyways, because the way that is set up over there honestly just looks weird. I am not messing with it, but still, I am talking no toilet paper, no bidet. That to me came off kind of gross, I guess, is like, what do you do? Like, if you have to take an expletive and there is no toilet paper, how are you supposed to clean your ass after that? Are we just assuming that everyone is just taking a piss in these bathrooms? Like, what is the deal with that? So that to me kind of gave me the impression that there is a lack of hygiene compared to like in the US. Do not get me wrong. You could go into a bathroom and it does not have toilet paper, but most of the time they are stacked with toilet paper here in the US. Like every single bathroom, even a gas station bathroom, they normally got a couple extra rolls for you. You know what I mean? So that aspect of it, I did find a little, kind of just weird. I was not a fan of that. So like I said, that may offend you, but that is just my take on it. And I am not saying Americans are the cleanest. Like, I shop at Walmart. I see a lot of pretty gross Americans all the time. Not saying all of them are, but the average Walmart shopper, not your prettiest person, myself included, but damn, like not having toilet paper, that is rough. I am not a fan of that at all. And again, I want to be clear, I am saying no toilet paper and no bidet. So how are you supposed to, take care of business after you take a dump? So that is another thing I did not like. The third thing I did not like, and this is very specific, is that in Italy, in their train system, they go on strikes, which is fine. I get that certain unions will go on strikes, but they have their strikes scheduled, which is like super annoying because it is not effective at all. So for example, when we were traveling from the Italian countryside to the beach town, which was like on the later part of the trip, basically our first train got delayed 60 minutes, which then caused us to miss our second train, which causes us to miss our third train. So then we have to sit there and play this like scramble game of trying to figure out, okay, what train connects to this one that connects to this one. And the whole reason they were going on strike is because of low wages, which I understand. I am not against going on strike, but to me, it is not that effective of a strike if you just do it like once a month, like you are not really doing anything. And the goal of the strike is to get people to complain so that then they increase their wages. And I am a very free market guy. So I am not really big on unions, but, I understand they definitely have a purpose. They can provide a lot of value, but I feel like when a strike is more effective is when like everybody goes on strike. But my main point here is I do feel like in the US, the strikes are more effective because they will go on strikes for like weeks at a time. So then it actually impacts stuff. Like if you are just impacting the government for a day and people complain for a day, it does not really bring any change. So maybe that is too specific. Maybe I am in the wrong here with what I am saying, but the strike was really annoying. It just made my life hell for a day, which was kind of annoying. It cost me some money. And then I am having to email customer support to, get a refund just because you guys do not like the job that you signed up for. Like, that is kind of on you. No offense. So yeah, that is just my take on that. Again, it might be another thing that offends people. I do not really care. It is just my opinion. The other thing I did not like is that public bathrooms cost money. That to me is insane. I hate that. It is annoying that you have to have like coins on you to be able to use a public restroom. We are like, yeah, do not get me wrong. Sometimes you go into a gas station, it says for customers only, but you can just buy like a water bottle or just buy something that costs $1 or $2. Like, not that big of a deal, but most of the time, like when you are driving around the US, you can drive into a gas station, park your car, walk in, go to the bathroom, and walk out. It is not a big deal. In Italy, you cannot do that, which was very annoying because there is times where when you got to go, you got to go. You know what I mean? Opinion, if you do not have coins to cough up, it is like, damn. I have to go sit down at a restaurant and order a drink and then I can go to the bathroom. Like, I did not like that at all. That was very frustrating in my opinion, which kind of goes back to the lack of hygiene stuff. Like, I feel like people should be able to use the bathroom without spending money on it. And I can also acknowledge that, if you go into a gas station and you have to pay for it, it is the equivalent to you paying to use a public restroom. But I would say out of most places you go in the US, like 80 to 90%, you can walk into most gas stations, use the bathroom, not spend $1 and walk out and get back in your car and go on your way. So that is another thing I was not big on. The next thing after that is that there is no AC anywhere. The Italians love it stuffy, even when you are sitting on a train ride for 3 hours. It is just hot as hell. It is humid as hell. Come on, man. Just put a little airflow in the expletive. I do not know why they like it so stuffy, but I am not a fan of that. Like, even when I am riding in Ubers in the US, I will tell them, hey, turn up the air. I do not need it to be, super hot or super cold air. I just like airflow. And that is something I definitely took for granted when going to Italy, is the air conditioning. Oh my gosh, feeling air conditioning when I slept last night was amazing. And that is something I definitely did not like. And to be clear as well, like, I also knew some of these things going into it, but when you are over there for 9 days, you are 9 days with like no AC, or even when you turn the AC on, it is like barely any airflow. It is not really doing anything. You are going to sleep. You are sweating bullets, which I hate because I like sleeping in a cold room. I keep my thermostat at like 67, usually 66 maybe. Like, I like it cold when I am sleeping. And so being in some warm, stuffy room when you are sleeping, it is just rough. Not a fan of that at all. Maybe I am a privileged American, whatever, but that is another thing was not huge on. And then one specific thing that did surprise me, I did not really like, was when we were in Milan, there is graffiti everywhere. And I know in the US there is graffiti, do not get me wrong, like especially you go into a city like New York, you are going to see graffiti. Most big cities there is going to be graffiti, but like in Milan, like even on really nice buildings with beautiful architecture, if you look at the bottom of them, graffiti all over them. I was like, damn, how do they allow this much graffiti? Like, I feel like there should be like a huge penalty for it, or they should at least try to cover up the graffiti